All right, let's get into something really wild. Picture this, it's 1974, and a prestigious government think tank releases this document. It's part blueprint for a whole new society and part a chilling warning of something called friendly fascism. I mean, its goal was nothing less than to outline the future of humanity. So let's dive into this incredibly strange and influential report, Changing Images of Man.
So, right out of the gate, the report opens with this incredibly dramatic warning from the UN Secretary General. This tells you immediately this was not just some academic exercise. The authors truly believed humanity was facing a ticking clock. This quote, man, it sets this urgent, almost apocalyptic tone for everything that comes next.
So who was actually behind this? Well, the whole project started under the U.S. Office of Education. Can you believe it? They created these special centers at places like the Stanford Research Institute, SRI, and their mission, officially, was to explore alternative future possibilities for the society. You got to understand, this wasn't some fringe group. No, this was a well-funded, official inquiry happening right at the heart of the American establishment.
Okay, so the report's authors saw a world that was absolutely on the brink of collapse. They weren't just looking at one problem at a time. They saw this whole interconnected web of crises that they called the world macro problem. To them, things like pollution or the arms race, those were just symptoms. The real disease, they thought, was much, much deeper. It was rooted in our very way of thinking.
And this quote just perfectly sums up their whole diagnosis. The report actually quotes the famous comic strip character Pogo to make a really profound point. The enemy wasn't some outside force. The problem was us. It was humanity itself, our values, our beliefs, the fundamental image we had of ourselves.
So, if the problem is us, then what's the solution? This is where the report gets truly audacious. It argues that to solve the world's problems, we don't just need new policies or better tech. No, we need a new kind of human. We need a fundamental upgrade to our psychology, our spirituality, our consciousness itself.
And this slide really lays out the before and after picture they were painting. The report claimed the industrial age had created this thing called economic man, basically a view of humans as individualistic, materialistic machines. The replacement they proposed was a whole new image, a person who sees themselves as part of a bigger ecological and spiritual system, someone focused on self-realization, not just piling up stuff.
Okay, so how do you actually pull off a transformation like that? Well, the report explores a pretty startling range of methods. Some of it sounds harmless enough, like education and psychotherapy. Other stuff was pretty cutting edge for the 70s, like biofeedback. But then it gets way more chilling. They talk about things like operant conditioning, which is basically behavior modification, and even the use of remotely activated electrodes in the brain as potential tools for changing society. Yeah.
And this brings us to the big question, right? If society is going to get this profound transformation of consciousness, who gets to be in charge? Who are the architects of this new reality? The report's own answers are, well, they're pretty astonishing.
In what has to be one of the strangest sections I've ever seen in a government document, the report just casually, matter-of-factly, references secret societies. It actually credits groups like the Freemasons with keeping these ancient mystical traditions alive, basically suggesting that these underground ideas have always been shaping culture from behind the scenes.
And here's the second bombshell. The report argues every culture has an editorial function, a power that decides which ideas get taken seriously and which get tossed aside. They say this power, which used to belong to the church and then to science, is now being wielded by funding agencies. Governments and giant foundations, they claim, have become the new editors of our reality by deciding what research gets money and what ideas get promoted.
So, if our reality is being edited and our minds are being targeted for an upgrade, where does all this lead? The report looks at a few possible futures, but one of them really stands out as this deeply chilling scenario for what happens if society fails to transform in the right way.
They called it friendly fascism. And no, this isn't your classic dictator with an iron fist. It's way more subtle. It's a technocratic kind of control, a managed society where this faceless network of government and corporate bureaucracies uses technology to guide our behavior, all while waving the flag of democracy and public welfare. It's control with a smile.
And here's the craziest part. They didn't see this as some far-off sci-fi fantasy. They saw it as an emerging reality. This report, written back in 1974, listed these specific trends as signs of emergence: military tech being used by police, behavior-changing drugs in schools, the government managing the news,
personality screening of kids, and combining personal data from computer files. Does any of that sound familiar to you?
And that's what it all comes down to, the ultimate question. The authors of Changing Images of Man basically laid out a fork in the road for us. A conscious evolution toward a better, more holistic humanity, or a slow slide into a comfortable, tech-managed dystopia. But was this document just a warning about that choice? Or was it, in some way, the blueprint for making it happen? That's the question this incredible report leaves us wrestling with.